Hello everybody. So today we're going to do another video tutorial. This time we're going back to 2017 and we're going to do my Into the Wild first bloom design. One second. I think my kids have given me a cold, which is great because I'm taking a vacation in a week. And of course it's always lovely to get sick on your vacation or before. So first bloom, and actually let's go back to the Into the Wild. Into the Wild was my first batik collection I did with Hoffman California Fabrics, and this was one of the designs that I did. Here it is as a group with the Summer's End and the Flying By as a group kit. And so this one was called First Bloom. It's called First Bloom because I have another design I named Lupin, and these are lupins. But the lupins are the first wildflower that really bloom like in mass places. And the few there, it's also one of my, it's also is my favorite wildflower that we have in Alaska. I absolutely love lupin. When I was growing up, I always used to say they were blue, but they're really very, very purple. And I did a number of batiks, and you can see one of them here and here, and then the background are all the lupin design that I did as part of my very first collection I did with Hoffman. So let's get to this one. So First Bloom, if you buy the kit, it comes like this. You have your background, or you have your borders here, your background, and all your laser cut appliques, as well as a pattern when you buy this. So everything that you get in the kit is everything you see from the top: your background, borders, appliques, and binding. The First Bloom design, when you get your pattern, the pattern is just for the individual one, but it does have cutting instructions. It'll tell you for the individual wall hanging. If you're doing the group one, the Summer's End block, which is this fireweed one, has the instructions included in it for assembling the entire thing. So of course you'd need all three to do one. So, and that's the third one in the group. So it has the instructions for doing all of it. But anyways, we have inside here our instructions for First Bloom. First thing on all my kits is pre-wash fabrics to block, remove excess dye. If you have watched any of my other video tutorials, you probably get sick of me hearing me say this, but your borders and your background, so all these ones that don't have fusible on them, these are all going to be unwashed. So the first thing you'll want to do is take all of these ones, rinse them in your sink with warm to hot water. The warmth of the water is what really gets the dye going. So if you're rinsing them in kind of cool to lukewarm water, you'll find that sometimes dye isn't really releasing much at all. But once the water starts warming up and gets hot, there are certain fabrics where the dye just starts like pouring out of them, and others where it just tints the water a little bit. Not too bad. I will tell you that in this First Bloom design, this inner border piece, it's Hoffman's 1895, which is their Bali Basics. The color name is Tahiti. This sucker bleeds like crazy. So please, I don't wash these for you. The kits will start costing more if you want me to wash and iron all of your pieces. I already do that for all the fusibles. It's a lot of time. So these ones here are left in there for you to do. Please, please, please rinse, especially this. The printed batiks don't always bleed as much because they go through a rinsing process to get all of the wax off of them. And so a lot of the times they don't bleed very much, but these ones that are considered the solids, they don't go through as much rigorous rinsing and they can bleed quite a lot, some of them. And I know for a fact that this Tahiti color bleeds like mad. So please pre-rinse in your sink. That's enough. You can add soap if you want. When I wash all of these, I actually just put them through like a regular wash cycle through my washer and dryer. So they get like washed with detergent, but these are perfectly fine to just stick in your sink. Rinse them with warm water, keep rinsing until the water runs clear. And then at that point that the water's clear, you don't have to worry so much that when you go to fuse these and you hit like these last few leaves are going to go on after you put the borders on. When you go to fuse this one, if you don't pre-wash and pre-rinse out all that excess dye in that inner border, it will bleed on your backgrounds. And especially you'll notice it in this lovely light colored lavender. And you don't want that. You did all that work and then to have it bleed and everything, it's just a mess. So please follow that step. It also, so the wash cycle rinses out the excess dye. The drying cycle tightens up your weave, and it also blocks the fabric. So blocking, as I've mentioned in all of my videos, is what the weave, when they get printed and they go through, they're done in Bali, they're wrapped all up, they're sent to California, they're put on bolts, then they're sent to a shop, and then they're taken off the bolt and the fabric's cut and you take it home with you. So during all that time, this fabric has gone through a lot of hands touching it, a lot of stretching, a lot of different stuff. And the fabric can get pulled a little bit. And this is cotton. It's got a bit of a stretch. It's got, it can be easily stretched out of shape. And so what happens is the thread, the weave, can get a little crooked. When you throw it into the dryer, not only does it do any shrinkage, which cottons are going to shrink a bit, but it also straightens out your weave. So if it's been stretched a little like this, it'll block itself, which makes the weave straighten right back up. If you haven't done this step and then down the road you go to wash something and you throw it in the dryer and it comes out and it kind of has a little pull to it like this, that's because it straightened its weave out. It blocked itself. And really you can't ever get it to go back to the way it was before, because the way it was before was stretched in an odd manner. And you're never going to get it to stretch back to that position. So sometimes if you have fabric, if you've ever made a quilt where you wash a quilt and it comes out and there's one fabric in the block, like one block piece that just has a little bit of a pull to it, that's because it fixed itself in your drying cycle, and it will always look like that. So do yourself a favor, do the step. There's a reason it's number one in all my patterns, because getting rid of that excess dye in batiks in particular is really important. But I have had regular printed cottons that have bled like crazy too. And actually one of the ones that bled the worst on me wasn't even a batik. It was just a regular printed cotton. So it blocks, it removes excess dye. It also shrinks up your fabric. So enough lecturing. Let's get on to the next step. We're going to cut our background now, selvage to selvage. That's our lavender lupine background. And we're going to cut it 14 by 21. So in your kit, you have a piece that is about 22. It's half the width of the fabric. It's a little wider than the 14 and a half. You want to cut it, your 21 is your width and your height is your 14 and a half. Keep in mind that this is a directional print. I think that if you were to accidentally flip it upside down, you might not notice until you get up close, and then you'll be like, oh shoot, my lupine are upside down. So keeping in mind this is a directional print, when we go to apply stuff to it, we want to make sure our lupine are upright. So my fabric has been cut. I'm not going to do the borders today for you because we just do, this is like, let's do the applique portion of it. And I don't sit down and sew borders. But when you get down to the end, of course, you'll want to sew your borders on, and your cutting instructions here for your inner and outer border, but particularly your outer border piece. It's also a directional print. So we want the lupine to be going up all the way around. So you might be like, wow, this is kind of a weird way to cut everything for your outer border, but it's to keep all the flowers upright. So when you go to do your outer border, you're going to trim off 3.5 inch strips from the side of your piece, making those 3.5 by 16. That gives you your side outer borders. Your inner border is a solid, so that doesn't matter how, this has no direction. You don't have to worry about that. But then from the chunk that's left over, minus this 7-inch piece you're cutting off the end, you're going to cut another 3.5 and a 4.5. This bottom one is a little wider, and trim those to 28.5. That gives you your top and bottom. And then the rest of it is for your binding. So the reason we do this is so that all your flowers are upright. If you're using a non-directional and you've picked your own fabrics for this, you might not have to worry about that, in which case, you'll want 2 3.5 by 16s and a 3.5 by 28 and a 4.5 by 28. Okay, so next, trace all applique pieces on paper side of fusible web, press fusible webbing to wrong side chosen fabrics, cut them all out. Now we have a laser kit, so guess what? We don't have to do that part because all of our stuff has been laser cut. If you are cutting this out yourself, I did do a tutorial that shows you how to go through the process of using fusible to cut everything out yourself. So please go check that out if you need some help. Gives you some tips. Make sure you do that all correctly. And but we don't have to do that step because we've already got everything cut, and you can see all my little shapes here. So now we are going to actually, this time, a lot of my kits will use applique pressing sheets. This particular one does not. A lot of them will, but on some of them I go ahead, and especially designs that I have like this one that has a lot of like little pieces, to do them on a pressing sheet, which you certainly can. Sometimes if the background is lighter, which we have a nice light lavender here, it's actually nice to just put them right onto the background. You can see through this fabric to see your layout pretty well. And so in this case, as in on a few of my designs, we actually aren't going to use a pressing sheet. If you don't have a pressing sheet though, and you get into other designs of mine, I highly recommend them. This one here is one that I've had since I was 19 years old. It's the first one I ever bought. It's a 13 by 17 and it's lasted for over 26 years now. So if you get into doing my designs, this costs about $20. It's called the applique pressing sheet. It's a 13 by 17 size. I've also bought, this was a huge one that I actually cut up into, it was like enormous. And I cut it across here and I cut the other piece into some smaller ones. So I actually end up with a really nice big one. But what I like about this particular brand is it's a lighter color, so you can see through it really well. So as an example, when we get our layout guide here, you can see when I put it on here, you can see the applique is really good through it, and it really helps to read the numbers and letters and stuff. But there are some others on the market that are a darker brown, and what I don't like about them is it makes it harder to see the lines. It has the same feel and texture, but the darkness I don't like. There's also a few others out there that have sort of a tackiness to them, and at first when I saw them, I thought the tackiness might be nice because it kind of holds things in place. But I found that within those ones, there's also like this little kind of wiggly little grid, and the grid marks make it really kind of hard to read like the numbers. Well, again, on here, the letters and numbers. And I found that even though the tackiness is nice, I didn't like the grid in there, and it made it harder to read. So overall, this brand here, the applique pressing sheet, this is my favorite one, and like I said, they're very affordable. The 13 by 17 is a great size to start with. I used this for years. They also have an 18 by 20, which is really nice. And then this one here was, like I said, it was huge. I don't know. Let me see how big it is here. It's 27, and I think I cut it in half. And so by 15, so it must have been around 27 by 30 or so. It's huge. It might have even been bigger. I cut it up because it was so big that it was actually a little too big. It was sort of unwieldy, but the 18 by 20 is awesome size. This 13 by 17 is a good one to start with though, if you're doing other designs that require a pressing sheet. But this one does not. So what we're going to do first, before we get to arranging everything, I will also say that you want to go take all your appliques and you want to label them. So your design page here has a layout guide, and then on the other side, it has all the appliques. Now, I just grabbed from my stack of ones to put together for kits, so this doesn't have the label on it. But when you buy a kit and you take it out, you'll see that it, like this particular color, is this light purple petals, and it will have a sticker on it that says light purple petals, 1895 333 peony, and everything is in the same order as you see it here. So I've gone ahead and I've labeled everything: D27A, D27A, D2, D2, E21B, E21B, and so on. And I've done that with all my shapes. So I have, here's all my greens down here. I've done my leaves, I've done my stems, everything. All of them have their label on them. Now, you can do one of two things. You can pop everything out and like have all the A's in order, all the B's in order. But I've found, and when I've cut them myself, I do that because they'll just sort of be in a jumble. But when I'm doing a laser kit, I've found that I prefer not to have them all popped out. I like to pop them out kind of as I need them when it's the laser kit versus when I hand cut them and I have them all loose. When I have them all loose, I do like to, like, off to the side here, I'll have A1, A2, A3, A4, all in order. And the nice thing about that is it tells me if I'm missing a piece. Like if I lost A6, I've got them all in order and I see ahead of time, oh my gosh, I lost A6. So I can find it, or I can cut a new one, rather than having to stop in the middle of it and make a new one. Also, it just helps the process to go faster. But with laser kits, I've just found that what I like to kind of do is just have all the pieces that I'm going to need right off to the side here, and I just kind of grab them as I need them. And it helps me to make sure I don't lose something. But I've just found that it might be a little faster when I go to arrange to have them already popped out and laid off to the side. But I just it just seems to me like I lose more pieces that way. And so I just kind of leave them and I just have them all off here to grab as I need them. So it takes a little longer sometimes to find the piece you need, but that's what I do with laser kits, and that's what we're going to do today. So we are going to get our layout guide here. We're going to put our background and we're lining it up with the bottom edge here. Now, again, this is a directional piece. Make sure your flowers are going the right way, that they are upright, and line it up. Okay, I'm going to turn my light table on so you can see. Whoop, make sure it's my light table gets brighter and darker. Oh, there, it's getting dark. Okay, so it was as light as it goes. Get it as bright as we go. There we go. Okay, so I've got it lined up with the bottom edge there. And one of the things that I like to do is take these little clips that are from Clover. They have different colors, different sizes of them. And I go over and I just clip. Oh man, this one's not going to want to fit. Oh, there, I got it. Just barely grabbed it. You can also use tape if you don't have these little clips, but I like to just clip a few of them off to the side and that kind of holds the fabric in place. So this way I can't clip it on this side, but I got it on this side. And again, a little piece of tape is okay. Just keep in mind that it could, if you go try to tear the tape off, it could tear your paper. But I like to do that, kind of holds everything in place, because I have done applique designs before where I'm arranging everything and then all of a sudden it's like this and I didn't realize it was like that. And I put this flower on there and then I went, oh shoot, I'm like way off. What happens for me, if that happens to me, what I do is I go, I'm going to finish this flower, I'm going to fix it, and that flower is just going to be leaning a little more this way. And I don't care, because once I remove this from behind this, you'll never know if your flower's off a little bit. So I always try to tell people, I'm not encouraging sloppiness, but I am telling you that they are very forgiving designs. They are nature. And if your flower is not exactly as my flower is, that's totally fine. And that's the way it would be in nature, right? If your flower B is a ½ inch over to the side, I don't care about that either. And if this petal is a 1/4 inch too high, you're never going to know. And I promise you that nobody is going to come look at your finished design and go, this lupine flower seems like he's swaying a little far to the left compared to the one on the original pattern cover, of which who walks around with the original pattern comparing to yours. So don't get so stressed about everything being perfect. It's all nature. It's not meant to be perfect, right? That's the beauty of nature. Okay, so in my instructions, what are we doing first? Let's see. We're going to start with lupine A, which is this one right here in the middle. We're going to do stem A first, and then all the floral pieces 1 through 7. You're going to love lupines A, B, and C because they're so simple. When we get to D and E, you're going to be like, why did I do this design? No, I'm just kidding. It's not that hard. It's just a lot. They're more complicated. You know, they're in the foreground. They're all flashy. You can see them really up close, and so they're a little more detailed. Okay, so I've popped out piece A. I'm just going to fold towards the paper, towards me, and that kind of helps the paper to crease and stay creased, and then the applique peels back off of it a little easier. So we'll gently peel that off. With stems that are real delicate and thinner like this, if you peel that paper off really, really fast, sometimes it kind of stretches the stem or the piece because, you know, it is a woven fabric that has, it's not turned edge, so it is raw edge here, and can be pretty easy on really skinny ones to tear something or stretch it. So I always say be a little gentle when you're peeling that off. And then when you go to arrange, I usually will arrange, it goes this way. I will arrange starting in the middle, because if I've had a little bit of stretch anyway, up or down, if I start kind of in the middle, it distributes that stretch evenly up and down versus starting up at the top. And if it's stretched a bit, you could be off by quite a good amount by the time you reach to the bottom. So I usually start in the middle, and that way if there is a bit of a stretch, it kind of distributes over the whole area. That one, no stretch that I'm noticing, so we're good. So now we've got stem A. We want to do floral pieces 1 through 7. So here's A1 right here, the little top, and I'm just kind of giving them a little tug as I pull them out. Peel that paper off and put it in place. A1, A2, and I see A3 and A4 are all in this lighter purple. I'm just going to pop those out. You'll see some of mine are wanting to fall out already. I'm just going to kind of keep them together over here. But if a few things fall out, I'm just going to keep them next to the sheet that they came from. One of the things with the laser kit is, my laser cutter is that there's sort of a delicate balance to try to find with these machines on cutting everything out without them falling out, but also without them not cut enough to where they want to not pop out either. So when I'm doing this, and it's interesting because different shapes can be different as far as like how if they want to fall out or not. Things that have a lot of curves fall out easier than things that have a lot of like spikiness, like fur on an animal. And so finding the setting that works perfect with them all can be challenging. And so sometimes with round things like this, every once in a while you'll find a piece where you might get it and there might be a tiny piece of tape holding something in. And that's because that wanted to fall out and I don't want you to lose it. So I'll just put a little piece of tape over it. So if you ever have a kit that has a little piece of tape, it's just that particular piece was wanting to pop out. I didn't want you to lose it. So I stuck a piece of tape on it to kind of hold it in place. Now these last pieces, 5, 6, and 7 are out of the dark purple. So just do that little fold over and put them down. And right now, all these pieces, you do see 1, 2, 3, 2 and 3 overlap 1. So it is important that you put things in order. Sometimes like 5, 6, 7, they wouldn't have mattered. I could have put them in any order I wanted. They're not overlapping each other, but I do always kind of tell people there is usually a reason for the numbers being, or letters being the way they are, and that you are meant to put them together in order. Sometimes it doesn't really make a big difference, and other times it makes a huge difference because of the way that they're meant to overlap. Okay, so we did loop. Oh, we're not going on to B yet. So we want to do the green lupine print floral background. That's this big one here. So this big piece here, we're going to go ahead and put this down now. Peel that off. Now this lines up with the bottom edge. So you just want to start like in the corners there, line it up with that bottom edge. And just kind of, I always think of these as like little rabbit ears that are sticking up everywhere. Okay, and I just realized that my iron is not plugged in. Give me 1 second so that it can get hot, because we will need it in a little bit. Okay, there you go. It will shut off periodically on me, but I do want it to be warm. Okay, so now that we've got our background, we want to do leaf A. So that's going to be from our dark green. Pop that leaf A out. And I think leaf A is over here. It is. I can see that there. If you're ever having trouble finding something, I also tell people this one, it's got these clips. So that's holding it in place, which is nice because I can lift it up and I can see, oh, there's leaf A. Lay it back down, just line up that bottom corner. And I kind of start again in the middle with that leaf. And I don't worry, again, also, like I said, I'm not super worried about everything being always perfect too. So I will tell you, if you flip your leaf around, you're not going to notice. I'm not saying be sloppy. I'm saying they're forgiving. Okay. So I always tell people, I'm not trying to tell you like just slap them wherever. I'm just telling you that if yours isn't exactly on the line, or if it isn't exactly the right direction, a lot of videos when we do things that have little flowers that have like a little circular kind of center, it might be like a little wiggly circle center. I will regularly just put them on upside down on purpose, or I'll just slap them in there and not care which way they're going. And I tell people, you're never going to notice, and nobody else is going to notice if that little circle is not perfectly lined up the way that it was meant to be. Of course, it's cut out the way the shape is, but if it's upside down or sideways or whatever, nobody's going to notice that. So don't stress over it. Okay, so we're starting with B, putting down the stem first. And then we're going to do the floral pieces 1 through 8. So again, I'm going to start, I have this like lighter green is B1. And then we go to the lighter purple and then the darker purple also on this one. B. And then here's B2. 3 and 4. I'm pulling these out of this light purple. I'm also losing other pieces because once you start kind of yanking on them, sometimes these others will start getting a little loose too, but I'm just keeping them all in one spot so I can find them later. B3. So some years up here we have like lupine just everywhere on the sides of the roads in South Central Alaska, and I love lupine. I've always loved lupine. They've always been my favorite Alaska wildflower. I know the fireweed get all the love, you know. I also really love lots of and we have a lot of other beautiful flowers. I call them some of the others the forgotten flowers because fireweed just take over. Everybody just loves the fireweed. Which they are gorgeous. And when we have fields of fireweed in the late summer, they are absolutely beautiful. I love fireweed as well, but the lupine come in June. So that's why this is called first bloom. They're the first ones that kind of, I mean, besides like dandelions, you get a lot of dandelions in early summer, but the first like wild, what I would call like our wildflowers, the lupine, they really start to show up in June. And my street that I live on, there are just lupine. Some summers, I don't know what gives them, like some years where they're just like everywhere and some years they're not. Last summer, unfortunately, there weren't very many lupine on the road, but the year before on the road that I live by, there were so many. They were just everywhere and it was gorgeous. And I love those years. They're one of those flowers too that because they start blooming from the top and then going down, 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 they last a long time. So like for like weeks and weeks, you just have these gorgeous purple flowers all over the place. And I love them. And it's funny because I've tried for years to get lupine to grow on my property. And it seems like everywhere I live, I can never get them to grow. And I'm like, these are wildflowers. They grow everywhere where nobody takes care of them. And then I try to like give them a nice place to live and they don't want to grow. But I've been getting some success the last few years. And I do finally have a field growing in my yard. And it's actually more to that later. I'm going to pause for a moment because I tore an applique. I don't know if you can see that. This little piece here, I tore off of this. So I'm going to show you. I'm glad that happened because I want to show you how to fix that. So something like that happens. I have that little piece there. Here's my main part of my stem, the body of the stem. So I'm just going to peel this off gently again because it's a stem. So that's a long skinny piece. I'm going to put it kind of here in the center and you can see where that little tear is right here. Laying it down. Now I'm going to take the torn piece, peel the paper off of that little tiny guy. And I could do two things. I could take this piece here, 5. Let me find it really quick. Here it is. C5. So this has the paper on it still, but I could take C5 and I could just move it and cover that stem, right? And you wouldn't even see the torn part. It's off a little bit from the background, but who cares? Once I take this out, you wouldn't notice it at all. So I could do that if I like ruined it, you know, if it was really messed up. Or I have this peeled off and I'm going to just go, and it has a little tiny bit of steam sticking out and I don't want that to get on my iron. So I'm going to clip that. And I'm just going to lay it right up against the rest of the stem that was torn, and it's fixed. And you'll never even notice it. You won't even see it. So if you ever have anything tear, it's an easy, easy fix to it. Just either trim it off, and like I said, stick the applique where it covers it, or butt up that piece to it, and the glue is going to fuse that together, and you won't even notice that there was a tear there. And it happens. So they're delicate little pieces. So it does happen sometimes that they get a tear, especially if you're jabbering and you aren't paying attention. So I'm just grabbing the pieces out of this medium. Here's C2, C4, here's C3. And that's all of them out of the light purple. Yeah, so anyhow, like I said, I love lupin. I've never was able to get them to grow on my yard. I was like, all I want is the edge of my lawn to have lupin everywhere. That's all I want. So I have taken seeds and thrown them all over the place and nothing. And then I have taken plants that, so my family owned this place, the Kenai Fabric Center. Oh, wait a minute. That's C5. I don't want that one yet. And it closed in 2020, and it was in the fall. And when we were getting toward the end of the summer and I knew it was going to be closing, I went out into the backyard, and there were a few lupin plants that were growing. And I know that lupin don't really like being transplanted, but I thought, hey, I know the people who were buying the store were going to just demolish the backyard anyhow. There were all these gorgeous trees and where I grew up playing and stuff. And I was really sad to know that they were going to clear the whole area. But I thought, well, they're going to kill them anyhow. If they don't live, then, they're going to die anyway. So I'm just going to try. So I dug like this, like here, the plants in the middle, I dug like this huge hole around them to try to get all their roots, dug it really deep, put them in these big buckets, brought it to my house, dug a big hole, stuck them off the side of my yard, and crossed my fingers. I think I did like 3 or 4 plants, and I know that 2 of them looked like they died for sure. After a few weeks, it was like, yeah, they are definitely don't seem to be happy at all. And I think they're goners. But the third one of them looked like it was doing okay. And then the final one, so I'm just going to interrupt here. Leaves B through D now. And then the final 4th one kind of looked like it maybe was okay, but not really happy either. So I thought, well, it kind of looked like maybe one of them will live. Maybe it'll come back next summer. The others, I'm not so sure. But I left them there, let it go. The next summer, I kind of didn't really pay too much attention, but I did see like a lupin. It was like, oh, I think I have one, that's great. Maybe I'll get more. So over the last few years, the area where I planted them, so what I'm doing right now is I pulled these out and there's a few little threads sticking out. So I'm just snipping them off. Anyhow, the ones that I planted after a few years now, let's see, this summer will be 6 years. There's actually dozens of flowers growing over there now, and I'm so happy. But the thing that's kind of makes me laugh, that's sort of funny, is I planted them at the kind of the edge of my yard, and I was hoping that like they would grow and fill in. Like if here's the edge of my yard, I was like, I put them over here, and I thought, come on, just like grow, and we'll get a bunch over here and all around the edge. And then what happened is the wind is blowing them this way, and they're going into my neighbor's yard. So it's all just woods and everything anyhow. But I was like, dang it, I got some to grow, but instead of growing around my yard, it's growing around my neighbor's yard. So they have gorgeous lupins over there now. But last summer, I kept meaning to do it, and then I forgot before it got too late. But I'm going to go out and collect the seeds and kind of spread them along my yard. But I do have, I was going to plant some raspberries along the edge of the yard there, and a few lupins start growing. So then I was like, forget it. I'm not planting raspberries. I'm just going to let the lupin take over. So I'm hoping, this is again the back edge of my yard. I have a few in here, a whole bunch back here. So I'm hoping I can get more and more in that area. So I'm relocating. My raspberry plants are going to come over this way. But anyhow, enough about that. But I've been trying for years. Like it's my goal in life has been to get wildflowers all over my yard, in particular lupin bordering my yard. And it's funny because I tell my husband, like, I don't know what the deal is. Everywhere that I've lived, all I want is a gorgeous edge of the lawn covered in wildflowers. It can be lupin, it can be geranium, it can be wild roses, it can be fireweed. I just want like that area that is just beautiful wildflowers for a couple weeks out of the year. And I have yet to be able to have that. Instead, I always live somewhere where grass just grows, like wild grass. It's just everywhere. And it's like, why? I just want some wildflowers. So I make them like this, and that's what I get. But I'm working on it. It's just, you know, you're never going to win the fight against that wild grass though. But I am slowly trying to give the lupins some space to grow. And I'm hopeful that in, you know, maybe another 5 or 6 years, I'll finally have like the back edges of my yard covered in gorgeous lupin. Okay, so now we're going to do lupin D. So lupin D is going to be a lot more work, and I apologize for that. But, you know, it's worth it. It's only 2 of them that are fancy like this, right? So lupin D, the first thing we're starting with is this bud background. So this is out of this dark green. And what this bud background does is it gives all of these other pieces kind of a place to sit on. And then if you have any little gaps between all these little pieces that were put together, you're not seeing the purple background peeking through. You're seeing this dark green peeking through. So it adds some depth that when and if you see it anywhere, and it kind of gives everything a place to sit on. So the bud background just sort of sits behind all these little buds. So just sort of lay it in there so that it's going to get covered. And then we're going to start with this green, right? This light green. So starting, that was bud background. And then we're going to start with, trying to figure out bud background is, oh, petals 1 and 2, and then the stem. I need to look. Oh, I know why it says that. Petals 1 and 2 are behind the stem. I haven't done this one 9 years, so it's been a while. So let's see, petals 1 and 2, we're looking for D1, which is in this dark purple. And then we're going to look for D2, which is in the medium purple. So we got D1. Oops. Okay, so now here's something else that's happened. This happened on another one of mine too. I'm going to have to, my mom does my laser stuff, and I've had a few times lately when I've been doing these tutorials where I have a fusible that doesn't want to stick to the fabric. It wants to stay on the paper. So if you ever have an applique that the fusible is not wanting to go onto the fabric, what you just do is take this, and because it happened on this one, well, I'm not using these quite yet, you just take that, put a little bit of warm heat, not real hot, just kind of medium. And then if you're having that problem, just go over the back of your appliques and give them a little warmth. And that gives it just enough so that the glue warms up and it will want to stick to the fabric more than the paper. The paper has a coating on it, so the glue doesn't want to stick to it. So that's what you do if you're ever having an issue where it's like, why is this fusible not wanting to come off on my paper? And then because I ripped that up and it gave me a little bit of a frayed edge, I'm just going to clean that up just a tiny bit. Okay. So now give it a second to cool. It's been plenty of seconds. Now we'll take D1 off, and now my fusible's on my fabric, not wanting to stick on my paper. Okay, so D1, D2 is out of the lighter purple. Hey, this is not the right shape. Did I do it right? Oh no. What did that say? That said D22. What is wrong with me? Put that back on there. Put that back over there. This is D2. It's like, what is going on? It's not that I haven't, I'm sure, made a mistake and made the wrong shape for something, but there we go. Okay. Then we want to do stem D. So here's stem D. So I'm going to pop it out. Be kind of gentle because it is that one that has all those, tiny little pieces. Sometimes with ones like this, I kind of just walk around with them, popping it out. versus like just yanking on it. There we go. So again, it's important that you put them in order because these two, they go behind the stem. So we want to make sure that we're following the order. Peel that off. And again, I center kind of from the middle. So I'm going to put like right here. That went right where it was supposed to. And this goes down, and you see it did get a little bit of a stretch because my stem is hanging off the bottom just a tiny bit. Now the only thing with that I don't like is that because that's hanging off, let's see if you get that bottom a little bit, I don't want it to get fusible onto my ironing board later, so I'm just going to trim it. So I just cut a tiny piece off the bottom of the stem just so it's not hanging off my background because everything else is lining up perfect. Okay, what were we at? Stem. And then we want to do petals 3 through 37. So petals that have multiple parts, you want to arrange in alphabetical order. So we have some pieces that will have like 27A, B, and maybe C. If you have something that says 27A, B, C, you put them in alphabetical order. So 27A, then 27B, then 27C. Okay, so let's start with D3. And that's going to be in here, and we're starting at the top, and we kind of work our way down. So just going to keep this piece right here, D3. And if you're not sure where, you can flip it up. I just kind of hold my hand, look, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay. And if you don't put them in exactly the right spot, put 4 where 3 is. They're almost the same, so don't stress. Don't stress. 5. Which I believe is in the middle. Yep. And I can't really see the middle very well at this point. This dark fabric, it makes it harder to see through it. So whenever it's, you know, kind of tough to see, you can do a couple things. If you're in a room, like right now I'm in a room with lots of windows. If it was later in the day, or if I had the ability to close my windows, I could make the room around me dark. And if the only light is this light table, you'll be able to see even pretty well through darker fabrics. But because I'm not really so stressed about it, what I'm just going to do is to get an idea, flip it up and look, okay, 8's in the middle. I'm just going to kind of stick 8 in the middle, and not stress too much about it being perfectly where it's supposed to go. I can see the edges to kind of get the ones on the outer part there. And so I'm just kind of placing them where I think they go. If they're not perfect, I bet you won't even know. I know I won't. 11, 12, 13, go to 11, 12's through the middle. Now 12 is a funny one. I found that 12 looks like it has like a little extra piece hanging off, like another little bump. And it doesn't look like that in the picture. So I'm like, why did I do that? So you can leave it as it is, or you could trim it. But I'm just going to leave it as it is. I'm actually not, it was funny because when I was labeling these, I was like, why did I do that? Was it originally drawn like that? I don't know. So I'm going to leave it. But I've had this design, like I said, since 2017. And had kits out since then too. 14, 15 are kind of in the middle. And I never noticed that. I don't know why. I don't know why I put an extra little bump on that in the laser, but it's not showing in the other thing. So anyhow. And then here's an example of like, see how there's a little bit of black, that dark green peeking in there. Oops. I could move 15 to cover it if I wanted, but I kind of like it. I kind of like a little bit of that dark showing because, you know, it just gives it depth. It gives it texture. And I'm going to leave it like that. And that's why we have that green behind it. It's so that if you have little spots where something is peeking, you're not seeing the lavender behind it. You're seeing, you know, the green, because that's how they would look in nature too, is, you know, they're really, these little buds at the top are really tight. And was that 19? Oh no, 19 is something else. 19, I believe, might be, let's see, it's going to be little. Yep, it's out of this light purple. So we're starting to get into the purples. So 19 kind of comes up here. Then we go to 20. And that's actually, this is the last of this green for this flower D. So 20 goes up through the middle here. And now 21, my guess is, yep, we're going to get into this. So here's 21. And a little piece of tape on that one because it was falling out earlier. And almost done with this bud where I will be able to, 22 is the one that I thought was D2. (22) 23 goes here. D23. D24 is in here. Wake up. That's just my iron. D24 and D25 are in this medium purple also. A little piece of paper or piece of tape. Okay, so 24 and 25 is over here. So there's a lot of pieces, but we're getting through it. 26 is over here. It's also this light purple. (27) is over here, and 27 has multiple pieces. So we're going to start with 27A, which I think is in this. I'm looking for it. 27A. It's still in this lighter one. (27A). 27B is in this kind of what do I call this one? It's like a wine kind of color, but the actual color of the fabric name on Hoffman is Marsala. That's why I think of it as like wine. But I have to look back here and see what I actually call it. It's part of the wine petals. What do you know? Okay. And then D27C is actually in the stem color here. It's a little stem. And then 28 has two parts, A and B. So D28 is going to be, I'm looking in here, D28. So it's in this dark purple. And then the wine color, D28B. D29, where are you? Okay, D29 is up here. And D29 is also in this dark purple. And oh, I put them in the wrong order. This one's A, that one was B. So let's just lift this back up. So right now, because we haven't put any heat to them, you can always move them, no problem. So there's 29A, and then here's B. Once you put heat to them, they're gonna want to stay. So D30A is out of the wine. Let me find it. Where's 30? 30's down here. So it's behind this one, so it's a little harder to see. But if you kind of like lift it up and look at it, then it's kind of like you know where it is and it's easier to find it. And D30B is in this dark purple. There's a little thread sticking out. I'm just going to snip that off. Come on. .31 is up here. We have 31A again in the wine color. 31B is actually getting back over into this medium purple. .32A out of the wine. And then 32B, let's see, let's say 34. There I had a few drop out over here, so let me look for. Here's 32B. It's in this dark purple. And then I know there's a 34, so we've got a couple more to go. 33. Oh, geez, there's a whole bunch more. Oh, there's a whole bunch more down here. So 33, 34, 35 are all in this little group over here. 33A. Now I'm going to flip it up and look at it. Oh, I see. Okay. So 33A goes up like this. 33B. If it says an A, then you know you're going to have at least a B, right? Because if it didn't have, it wouldn't have an A. It would just say 33 if there wasn't a B. There's B. 34A. .34B. So where is that? That's in the medium purple. I'm pulling it off to the side there. And then 35 is right here in the middle. So let's see, 35A. Oh, it's right up there. Okay, right up here. And 35B is in this dark purple. We're getting very close to being finished with flower D. One of two more complicated fellows. Okay, 36 and 37 are here, and then that's it for flower D. So that's an E. So D36 out of the wine color. D36, medium purple or light purple. I think call it light and dark on this one. It's more of a medium, but we only have two purples. So 37A. And 37D. Or B, sorry, not D, B. Okay, so this gets us done with lupin D. Boom. So last one is going to be E. I got little pieces flying all over the place. So for lupin E, final one, we're going to start with our bud background again. So that's out of this dark green. Pop this out. Now we have these three big leaves left in here, and I'll tell you, these last three leaves we're not going to place on here today in the video because you have to put your borders on, and the leaves go on and they overflow, you can see here in the picture, onto the borders. Iron, don't talk back to me. So what we're going to do today is finish the middle. I'm going to show you how to fuse it. And then what you would do next is sew your borders on, and then place your final big leaves around on the border and then fuse those. So do like a second fusing over those, and it's not going to hurt anything else that you fuse behind it. But just so you know, These green, this one we're done with for today. And we will finish the middle, finish the fusing, and then once I get the borders sewn on, I'll put those on later and finish up the actual final quilt. But for right now, in the tutorial, we're going to get this one done and then do fusing, and that will be it. Okay, so let's see. We did bud background, stem. Okay, so stem E. Whoops. Gently peel that off. So again, with my buds, I always kind of try to start, or my stem, sorry, I kind of start in the middle, go up, down. It again is hanging off just a little bit. I just don't want that to get on my iron. And you know, you have your 1/4 inch seam allowance down here that edge is going to go under. So I just cut it so that it's, you know, not hanging off. Okay. Now, petals 1 through 25. Oh, only 25, yay. Okay. Starting at the top with our light green, we're going to start with E1. E2. E3. Ow. Sorry if the video shakes a lot. For one, my table can get a little shaky and I lean against it a lot. So I do that, but I also smack things all the time. And it's balancing this thingy up that's holding my phone is balancing on a couple of my boxes that hold my kit bags. It's not the most like stable, you know, we're not like working on like an Academy Award winning video here. This is my extremely basic video tutorials because I decided years ago I should do video tutorials because, you know, my designs look really complicated and I think some people get intimidated by it, but I really wanted people to know that like you can do these. I promise you can do these. They're like peel and stick. It's like stickers, you know. Yeah, it looks complicated, but trust me, the hard work has been done for you. The laser machine has cut all these out and it's not that difficult. And they're all nature, so they're also very forgiving, you know. I always tell people that too. It's like, you know, if your flower's a little different than mine, good, it should be, you know, and if you put them in a little bit different arrangement, that's okay. And I've had some people in classes that just go like way out of the box and do like, oh, I decided I'm gonna do like something completely different. And it's like, you do whatever you want. It's, you know, you be you and you do whatever you like. As long as it makes you happy and brings you joy, then awesome. But anyways, I had thought like I should do some tutorials. I think it would be helpful for people to be able to see. For one thing, when I don't teach classes a lot, but when I do, I find that people usually make mistakes that like make things harder. And I'm always like, you know, no, I don't want you to make it harder on you. We're done with this color. I want you to see how simple it is. And so there's so many things that people will do. One of the things I noticed in a class I did on the cruise is that sometimes people aren't understanding that you're overlapping things, and they'll try to like, instead of putting this piece here, I'm gonna peel it up, instead of trying to put it where it overlaps the stem, they'll try to put it where it just touches the stem. And it's like, no, they're meant to overlap each other. When you're doing like these, you know, flowers here, you want them to overlap. They're sticking to each other. And when I have big designs that have like maybe let's think something that is like an animal, and it has all these different components to its face or its body, you're always going to have an overlap. So I would find people would try to put them like this, and it's like, no, they are meant to overlap. They're meant to hold on to one another and create one applique. So just little things that I found that people do that I think like, gosh, you're making it harder on yourself, and then that makes it no fun, you know, when you feel like you're not doing it right, or it's not fitting or whatever. So finally, like a year and a half ago, I finally was like, oh, I want to do tutorials, but you know, it's nice to have like a little pretty intro and to have like a, let me introduce myself and blah, blah, blah. Here's my thing and here's the sample. And now let's go to my hands and we'll put it together and then let's finish up and I'll smile at you and show you the finished product. And I thought that involves me doing editing. I do my website. I design all my patterns myself. I put all my kits together. I have my mother and my daughter and my husband who help me a bit here and there. But otherwise, I'm 90% of everything. Well, my mom helps a lot these days. So maybe I'm like 80%. But my point is, I don't have a lot of free time. I don't have a lot of spare time. And so for me to sit there and try to do video editing, it's like, that is not my thing. I don't like being on the computer. I don't want to do it. So I finally decided, is it worth just videoing my hands doing it? 17 has an A and a B, by the way. Here we go. 17A, 17B. And once we get 17B out of here, the stem piece is done. I decided it's better to just do this. Very, very basic, no editing, me just blah, 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 which I do. And putting these suckers together and getting it out there so that people can see, than not having it out there. And so I just, I think it's been, was it last summer or the one before? I don't know. It's been less than 2 years that I've had some tutorials on, and they're great. I'm really glad I'm doing them. And people who are new to my designs, I try to direct them to these YouTube videos all the time and tell people, like, please go on, because I want you to have a good experience. I don't want you to be frustrated. Let's see, I'm on 19. 19B. Oh, that is a 19A right there, to read my own writing. And I just want people to see that they're not as hard as they look. And, you know, you don't have to tell people that they're not as hard as they look. Like when you have someone come over and you go, oh yeah, do you like my new lupine? Isn't it so beautiful? And they're like, oh my gosh, look how that is so beautiful and detailed and all that cutting. And you can be like, I know, my hands are just killing me, but it's so beautiful and gorgeous. And didn't I do the best job? And they don't have to know that you know, used a laser kit. I won't tell anybody. But anyhow, so I hope nobody is disappointed in the, you know, very basic videos here. But I just wanted to get something out there and actually have fun putting them together. I always tell my family, like, don't come in when I'm doing it. I don't want you to hear me talking. It's so embarrassing. And then I think, like, but then again, I'm talking to myself in a room by myself, but I'm acting like I'm talking to you, and I don't want people to hear me talking to you, but then I put it online and everybody gets to hear me talking. So I don't know what I'm embarrassed about, but I guess I don't feel like there's really, this one's done now. Actually, no, it's not. I dropped things. I think these are these. No, maybe not. And yeah, some of them fell out. And so they're just kind of hanging out on the side. Anyhow, so I talk to myself all the time anyhow when I'm in my studio. So I figured, you know, it's not hard for me to sit here and talk and pretend that a person's there. I'm sure others out there do the same thing. Whoop doop. This one goes this way. But anyways, so I hope that people find value in these and are able to kind of see that, like, hey, I can do this. I always tell my daughter, she's 15, and I've told her for years, you could totally do these. And she's like, nah. And it's not because she doesn't think she can. It's because she doesn't want to. But I get it. When I was her age, I was not interested in anything to do with fabric. And I never in my life would have thought this would be what I'd be doing in my life. And that this would end up being like the media that I would use for my art. But it's great, and I really enjoy it. And it's nice because my family had a fabric store. I grew up in the fabric store. Like literally, I was there every day. My grandparents owned it. My mother worked there. My aunts worked there. And I was there every day until I was probably like 11. And then I was finally like, Mom, please let me go home after school and be by myself. And she started letting me do that. And then, of course, you know, I did for a long time. But then when I got into college, I started working there to help. And my grandparents have retired. And so it was just my mom and her sisters. And then I worked there. My sister worked there for a little while too while we were in school. And I've always been into art. And it kind of just, I did a lot of samples of other people's work. And so it ended up being something that it was like, oh yeah, I can do all these samples. And this is how I started doing this kind of thing. And then after a while, it was like, you know what? I can do my own work. I can do my own. I think I will. And I did. And the rest is history. Okay, so now 25, you'll notice is also hanging off the bottom. The leaf is going to hide the bottom because it goes over the seam, but I don't want this to get stuck to my board. So I'm going to trim the bottom of 25 off, but we're done. We're done. Okay, so we're finished with the center. Doesn't she look beautiful? I love lupin. I can't wait for summer. Okay, I'm going to unclip. I'm going to get my layout guide out from behind this. And now I'm going to grab my ugly, dirty quilter's cotton press and stick this on there. So now what are we going to do? We're going to fuse it because we need to put like our borders on, right? Next, if we leave it like this, these things will, I mean, they'll lift. They're just right now, the glue is holding them. And I mean, they'll stay in place, but if you're sewing around it, you're very likely going to have something fall off. So in the instructions, I tell you to lightly fuse. And then we get into the instructions on sewing on your borders, right? So I'm going to say lightly fuse. Well, what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to like permanently fuse it. And you can do either thing at this point. Lightly fusing to me is taking your iron, medium heat. Mine's on a higher heat, and that's just because I have an iron, you know your iron. If you have an iron that is real hot, definitely start on a medium to low heat. If you have an iron like mine that isn't very warm, even on max, it's not super hot, but I used to have another iron that it was like, holy cow, don't put it on max. It's like, it'll like scorch the earth. So I put mine kind of on a higher side of medium, but you're just going to press. Now you're not ironing at all because you could catch one of these little edges and it'll peel right off, stick to your iron, and it'll ruin your applique and it'll get your iron all yucky. So we're just putting some heat, dry heat all over, lifting and pressing everywhere that we have our appliques. And this is just warming up that glue, and it's kind of getting it to where it's wanting to stick to the background and lay nice and flat. So I'm just lifting and pressing, lifting and pressing. I'm going to do this over the whole thing. And so what I'm doing right now by doing this is I'm getting it to where everything is really nice and flat now. Everything is staying in place. And if I wanted to go ahead and sew my borders on, I could do that at this point. And it's very unlikely something's going to fall off now. So that's my lightly fusing. And you can see nothing's moving. It's going to stay there now. And basically I have one of my little puppy dog's hairs on there. That happens all the time. Okay. So at this point I could sew my borders on, and I would. I go ahead and sew my borders on, and then you'll see that the next step is to arrange those leaves E through G, right? E, F, G. That's these big green leaves that we didn't pop out. And the reason we would do those after is because they hang out over onto the border. Now, I'm not going to do that in this video, and you'll know that step and what to do. But so what we would do after we were to put those leaves, we would fuse everything well, and we want to do that with steam. So my iron, which doesn't get super hot and is called a reliable iron, I realized during my last tutorial, it's not very reliable in that it doesn't get super hot, and I don't trust it to be a steaming iron because when I used it for steaming one time, I was like, psh, on a very light area, and what did it do? I hadn't even had it very long. I don't even know how it would have had any buildup of like minerals, but it went and it spit iron all like iron from my iron, spit this rusty ironing dirtiness all over one of my appliques. I was so mad. And I thought, okay, I'll never use that again for steam because it did that. So because it's untrustworthy and it is not reliable, I just use a spritzer bottle. So I'm going to spray this and I'm going to get it pretty good and wet. And then I'm going to take my iron and I'm just going, I don't know if you heard that, to put that on there, and I'm going to let it evaporate all of that steam. And so it's going to sit there for about 8 to 10 seconds. Now this part gives some people a lot of anxiety because I'm just leaving my iron there and I'm not touching it, right? It's okay. So just let it evaporate all that moisture. So the steaming part of this is really important for getting a good permanent fusible bond. Just applying dry heat, I find myself, does not really make that glue stick as well as adding steam. So it is called steam-a-seam. And I say it's called that for a reason. You want to use steam. So I've wet another area and I'm just going to set it down. Now, if you were using a steamer iron, what you would do is you would take your iron, you'd hold it within about 1 inch of the space, blast it with steam for about 5 or 6 seconds, really get a lot of steam on there. And then you would just set the iron directly on that footprint with dry heat and do what I'm doing right now and just let it evaporate all of that steam and all of that moisture. And so as you go around, you do each footprint. And you're going to do this over the entire surface on all of your appliques. Now, some places, like say over here, I have my background applique, I have my leaf, and I have a petal. And I even have on this little tip over here another petal. I have like 4 layers of steam-a-seam and fabric right here to get to my background. So in some places, when you have a spot that has like a lot of layers, it's not even a bad idea to flip this over when you're done and steam from the back, because that way you know that that moisture has gotten all the way to the final layer, because your final layer is what's stuck to your background, right? So it doesn't lift off the background. You want to make sure that that last layer really sticks well. So I will go around and I will do the entire top. And once you've got some good steam on there, if you have the background wrinkling up a little bit like this too, I always say, once you're done, you can iron it. You can go through and do some ironing now. This is very well stuck in place, this section that I've done. So I can sit there and I can kind of iron out those little wrinkles that happen when the moisture kind of puckers it up a little bit. But now I've done this area, so I'm gonna just move it over a little bit. I'm gonna get this guy wet. One thing that's nice about lupine is they're like the shape of my iron, so I can just kind of do them one at a time. But one of the things that when I taught on the cruise last year, it was really tough for some of the ladies to set their iron down and take their hand away from it and not touch it. And I told them, leave it alone. It's okay. It's not going to burn it. Now, I will say one thing. Know your iron setting, because you want it to be at about a medium heat right now. And if your iron is on a really high heat and you're doing this step and your iron's too hot, what it will do is what I call frying your glue. And it can actually make the glue to where it doesn't like right now, so if you look at the glue up close, and I don't have it where, and you probably wouldn't be able to see it very well on my screen anyhow, but if you look at steam-a-seam up close, it has sort of like it's almost like little dots of texture that make like this weave. And sometimes if your iron is too hot, especially in lighter colors like this light green, you might start seeing those dots come up. I notice it sometimes in like white fabrics or really, really lighter ones. If you ever see that, that means your iron is too hot. And I'm not really sure exactly what it does to the glue, but like right now, as I'm putting this heat down and I'm putting this moisture down, the glue just kind of like spreads out and just sticks to everything, right? When the iron's super hot, it's those little dots show up and it's almost like they get stuck and they don't start to blend with each other. So I always tell people, if you see little dots, your iron's too hot. So turn your iron down, let it cool off a few minutes before you go to do it again, and then continue the process. Because when it's too hot, the glue, and the reason I say it fries it is because sometimes it's like the glue got really, really, really hot made those little dots, and then it's not even really sticking, and it will peel up, and it gets this like really super shiny sheen on the back of it too. And I used to have that problem sometimes when I was younger, when I first started using it, where it was like, I don't know why, but this one little applique doesn't want to stick. And I'll try to re-steam it, which you can put a little more heat and re-steam an area if it starts to lift, or maybe you missed a spot or something, you can go through and re-steam, and it's not going to hurt anything. I can go back and steam from the back of this, and it's not going to bother the glue anymore. But I would find that when I try to like, oh, why is this little guy not sticking? And I could see that there's steam on the back, and I try to reheat it and it doesn't do anything. And I thought, oh, I fried the glue. Like I did, it must have been too hot, and it damages the glue and it won't stick anymore. If that ever happens to you, I will tell you one thing that I've done, because like I said, when I first started doing this, I did do that a few times. So what I would do is I would get like a fabric glue, and I would just, a lot of time I'd take like a toothpick or something, and I would just stick some glue on the end of the toothpick, and I'd take my applique and I'd lift up the little spot, and I'd kind of run the glue under, and then I gently put it down and just let it dry, a clear glue, and then it's fine. It'll stay in place, and then at least you don't lose your applique. But that's the main thing. If you overheat that glue, you can run into an issue where you fry your glue. And in which case, if that happens, the glue kind of has been ruined and it won't stick. It will still hold your applique together though. So you could apply like a clear fabric glue behind it and use it. But if you do like I'm doing, you don't have to worry about that either. Just make sure your iron's not too hot. Go through. I'm almost done. Just gonna do this bottom corner. And then it's finished. And so at this point, this area I just did, so I won't mess with it. But if you look over here, like I can sit here with my nail and try to lift. These are not lifting. The edges aren't fraying. Like it is stuck. And that's what you want. And so I've done this for a lot of years. Obviously, I know what I'm doing, but it's not that hard. It's a pretty simple process once you know what you're doing. And the main thing is don't be afraid of your iron. Leave it alone. Let it evaporate all of that moisture. And then what I'll do when I'm finished is I kind of feel it. And if you kind of feel like it's cool, or you can kind of feel like, oh, that feels like there's a little bit of dampness in there. Once you've got it steamed really well, everything's really flat and stuck now. You can just take your iron and just go over it and kind of just give it that heat so it sort of evaporates anything else. Or if you've had any of that little puckering happening on your background behind stuff, you can iron it out really well. And it's done. So if you were concerned about it, getting that seam all the way through, you can flip it over. And what I'll do is I can kind of see where the appliques are. You can see the dark shadow there. I'll kind of just would go through and maybe re-steam down here at the bottom in each one of these little things, but I'm not really so worried about it. So I think I'll just leave it. But we are done with the middle. At this point, all you would do now is sew on your borders. Press your borders. I usually always press my seams away from the center. Press your seams away. Add your last 3 of these leaves, and then you would just go through and you would just steam those leaves and just make sure that they're stuck really nicely to your border. And then you go through and do your quilting and your binding. Now, I also have a quilting tutorial. So when you get to that step, if you're like, how should I quilt this? Well, I'm not going to go through it with you today because I've already talked enough. But I will tell you that I have a quilting tutorial go on my YouTube. There's one about quilting. I go through the whole process of quilting and how I do my wall hangings and my table runners, and tips if you're doing appliques like this on a quilt as well. Because quilts are a little different. They get a little more love. So I don't stitch. I will tell you, I don't stitch on these. I use a clear thread and I stitch around them, but on the background fabric. And I explain that in the video. So watch that. And I hope you enjoyed this. And so can't wait for summer. Can't wait to see my lupine. And I hope all of you have a great rest of your winter and pick up one of my kits. www.wildfiredesignsalaska.com. I also have a new site that is just for shopping. It's called shopwildfireak.com, and you can pick up one of your own First Bloom laser kits. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.